Okay. I think this is part five, maybe part six of the Faith and Calm series, and this time we're talking about the metaphor from the virus and how the virus can actually help us on the psychological level, how to deal with all the challenges that we have in this time. Because right now we are living in a very challenging time. In a certain way, we have 1 foot still in Gullus in the one world, and 1 foot already in the Geula world. And that's a very challenging time to be in, because this didn't even happen when the Jews left Egypt. They left Egypt, they were just going from one location to another. But we are actually in the process of entering an entirely new world, the post-Mashiach world. So that's difficult to live in such a time, and it's very challenging. And so we're doing these classes partially to try and give people some perspective and understanding of what is happening in the big world, and so that they'll be able to understand how to deal with things inside of their own micro world, of how they deal with the challenges that they have. So in Hasidus is a part of Torah that helps us really understand much more than the legal aspects of Torah. It understands more of the spiritual aspects of what's going on. And it helps us understand, even from things like a virus, how that really affects, how that is impacting on the whole world. So one thing about a virus and how a virus attacks a person as opposed to a bacteria is a bacteria is a living organism. And living organisms are can be for good or for bad. Bacteria, you have to have a lot of bacteria in your intestines in order to digest. So there are good bacteria and there are bad bacteria. A virus is always bad. Why? Because a virus is not alive. It's an inanimate piece of RNA wrapped in a protein. And it's sort of odd. How does that then affect a person? And the way it works is that the way viruses work is they have no energy of their own and no life force of their own. They're vampires. They suck on your own energy. They attach to a cell, and through a process called endocytosis, they get the cell to get the virus inside of it. And on a metaphorical way, it's basically what they do is the cell, when it's hungry, it wants to feed. And so what the virus does is it tries to look like a piece of food, and then the cell actually pulls it in. The living creature, the cell, pulls the virus inside of it. And then once it's inside, it starts using the cell's energy to duplicate itself and duplicate it until finally it overwhelms the cell, and then it shoots it out all over. The cell dies, and it shoots the virus all over the body. What does this mean? This means, in a certain way, the same thing with us. We don't normally fall prey to different kinds of psychological and spiritual issues. We don't get depressed or other kinds of stuff unless we actually help the spiritual virus take us over. It's like the story that we have from the Medrash that says that the tree, when it was created in Gan Eden, when it heard the next day that iron was created, it got very scared because it knows that axes are made out of iron. And God said, you really have nothing to worry about, because an axe cannot be made without an axe handle, and the wood has to come from you. So if you don't give the wood to the axe handle, then you can't be chopped down. And that's really the truth for every person too. We allow other people to trigger our trigger points and to make us upset and to cause us all sorts of pain. If we are strong in self and we know who we are and we're confident and we're happy, nothing can affect us. The same thing with the virus. When we are healthy and we are positive and we have a good attitude and we look at life as an opportunity and as a challenge and as new openings, and every day is giving us new openings, then there's really nothing that can make us depressed or sad or worried or anxious or lose our faith and our calm. So we have to figure out, though, how to do that, because there's a lot of messages out there in this world, and they're all telling us, panic, scare, run, hide. It's terrible out there, and there are many terrible things happen. There are bad things happening, but we have to put them in perspective. We have to be able to say, it's well, let's look and see how we put this in perspective. So, oh, we just got Darcy in. Should I start over, Shalom Judith?
No, keep going.
Okay. All right. So, people who came in late, they can listen to the beginning of this, and they'll get the perspective. So, one of the techniques for maintaining your faith and your calm actually comes from this last week's Shabbos. We read a Parshas Kedoshim, and it starts out. I'll read the line, so you don't have to pull out your sources yourself. It says, "Vaydaber Hashem el Moshe lemor," which is, God spoke to Moshe saying the following: "Daber el adat b'nei Israel," speak to the congregation of Israel. And here comes the line. Yeah, v'yamarta lechem, say to them, "Kadoshim to you, you should be holy." That's how we read it. Kadoshim to you, you should be holy. And then the Torah continues and says, "Ki kadosh ani," because I am holy. Now, the Meforshim, the commentators all ask a question. What does the first thing have to do with the second? How does the fact of God telling you you should be holy, what does that have to do with God is holy? They're two separate things. It's sort of like Warren Buffett saying, I have a lot of money, and you should have a lot of money too. Okay, that's nice. How? What does the first one have to do with the second? I really don't know how that's supposed to work out. So how's that supposed to work? So the answer is follows. It comes from the Medrash. So the Medrash continues and it says, "Kadoshim to you, you should be holy." What does that mean? Ki kadoshim to you, Yehol kamoni, you can be holy like me. So it seems to be saying, God is saying, you should be holy because I'm holy, and therefore you can be as holy as me. The Medrash says, no, you can't be as holy. Talmud Lomar, the Torah says, Ki kadosh ani, I am holy. I am holy, and I have a level of holiness that's higher than you. Kudashi, yeah, Kudashi lamala mikudusha. My holiness is higher than yours. So when God is telling you to be holy, he's saying, try. That seems what it seems to be saying, but don't think and don't imagine that you can actually become as holy as God, because you can't become as holy as God. I'm holier. My holiness is higher than yours, but at least you should try. The first level of understanding of this is it's telling you that, you know what, you can become holy, but don't get discouraged because you don't get to become as holy as the angels or as holy as Hashem, because you're not supposed to become as holy as the angels or Hashem. You're supposed to be holy like a human being. And human beings, they vacillate. And sometimes you feel good and you have a great day, and some days you don't have a great day. And it goes back and forth. So actually, in a certain way, this is an encouraging thing. Try, become holy, do more good things, and do it as well as you can as a human being, because that's all God asks of you. And don't expect to be as holy as Hashem, because I am holy and my holiness is higher than yours. That's the way most people understand the Medrash when they read it. And that's not bad. That's encouraging, because, we go back forth. We have our issues, we have our failures, we have our fears and our phobias. And some days go really good and some days don't go so good. And that's okay, because as the Kotzker Rebbe says, I want you to have holy, Anshe Kodesh to you, this is the line. You should be people of holiness. And the Kotzker Rebbe explains, and he says, Anshe Kodesh, you should be human kind of holiness. I want human holiness. I don't want godly. I don't want angels. I have angels. They're a bunch of robots. They do exactly what I want, God says. I really like it when human beings act well. That really gives me inspiration, and that really makes me happy. So that's already one level of encouragement. But we can go further than that. Chassidus explains further. And this is coming from a famous Hasidic rabbi named the Rabbi Menachem Mendel, also known as Nachum of Chernobyl, of the Chernobyl rabbi. And he was a direct student of the Baal Shem Tov, and he lived in Chernobyl, and he passed away, I think, in the 1790s. And he said that we're reading this medrash wrong, and there's really something, a much more powerful message that's there. The message is as follows. The message is, we read this as a question. The medrash says, Kadoshim to you, you should be holy. And then it says, Yehol Kamoni, that you could be like me. And he says it's not a question mark, because there's no question marks in the Torah. We don't see punctuation. It's actually an exclamation mark. Yes, you can be holy like me. And the Medrash is going on to explain to you, because I am holy. Because I am holy, I can give you my powers, because the deepest part inside of you is your soul. That's what animates your body. Your body is a lifeless mass. And that's what happens after you die, is the soul goes back, but it stays alive, because souls don't die and life doesn't die. Life is always alive. The soul is always alive. What happens is that there's a separance between the body and the soul. But you are holy, because at the deepest level of you, you are a soul, which means you are a part of Hashem. And when I say part of Hashem, it doesn't mean like you're a piece of a hamburger and he's the big one and you're the little piece of it, because spirituality and godliness doesn't divide up like that. It means that you are, just as God is holy, you have holiness inside of you. And that's the deepest, truest part of who you are. Inside of you, your deepest, truest part that animates you, that gives you life, that keeps the cells going, that gets you going in the day, it's all godliness. And what happens is we get detached from that and we get misaligned from that. So God is saying, reattach. Spend this time now. You're praying. You're having a lot of time by yourself. Get to know yourself. And if you get to know who you truly are, you'll find out you really want to be good. You want to be good. You want to be successful. You want to do positive stuff. And you just never get around to it. So here's your opportunity. If you really are connected to who your deepest core of identity is, you can be holy like me. Yeah, you can be holy like me, because you are part of me. And not only that, but the Chernobyl Rebbe continues, and he says that the end of the Medrash now makes a lot more sense. First, it seemed to say, you are, because I am higher than you. Okay, good. You can't get there. Nah, I'm bigger, I'm higher than you. And he says, no. We really should read the rest of the Medrash, goes a little differently. It says, my holiness is mikadushasam. Me means from your holiness. My holiness in this world is revealed when you start acting positive yourself, when you start acting holy yourself, when you start doing good things. Then all of a sudden people around you start saying, wow, where's that person? Why is he so positive and so optimistic? How come he gets so much done each day? How come he's so organized? How much he's so enthusiastic? I want to be like him. He's drinking something and so forth. Yeah, but he's drinking his godliness, and you're bringing out the godliness in this world. And when human beings start becoming good and like they're supposed to, like they know they can, this is going to be a better world. This is going to be a Mashiach world. This world is going to become what it's supposed to be. So this is really what Mashiach is all about. It's not about somebody, it sounds like a fantasy. Okay, one day there's a guy's going to pop into the scene, and all of a sudden the world's going to change. How did he do it? Oh, magic, he made the world change. It actually has to be much more deeper way. It's when we start acting that way, when human beings all of a sudden start saying, I spent too much time at work, and I didn't spend enough time with my children, and when I go back to work, I'm not going to go back to that kind of same rat race and that same kind of a situation again. I'm going to start behaving differently, because I really got in touch with what was important in life, and I saw who was important, my family, my people, and you know what? That changes the world. That changes the world. That's Mashiach. And so that's what the Medrash is really saying, according to Nachum Chernobyl. He's saying, my holiness is brought out in this world. Godliness is brought out in this world. Mashiach is brought out in this world. When you start behaving your way when you're in touch with your true being, and that starts bringing the true being of the world into this world. God, start becoming a little reflection of God in this world. And that's what we're saying. Kodesh to you, you can be holy. And you just have to reconnect to what you really wanted to be in the first place. And of course you want to be good. You just never get around to it. Like me, you never get around to it because you're all distracted by all the other kinds of crazy stuff going around and so forth. Well, guess what? You don't have to be distracted anymore because it ain't happening anymore. So you can get in touch with who you are. It's really very good. And when you really get in touch with who you really want to be and you start behaving the way you wanted to be and you start acting that with family members and other people, then you start becoming who you really can be. And that's very practical and that's very real. But we can take this one step further. There was a grandson of the Chernobyl Rebbe named Yisrael Luzhin. He lived in the town, he was named, I think his name was Yisrael Friedman. And yeah, Friedman. And he lived in the town of Ruzhin. And later on, he lived as he's a very interesting character. He actually, he was, unlike many other Hasidic rabbis, he lived a very royal lifestyle with grand coaches and very kingly clothes and other kinds of stuff. And the Tsar heard about this and figured he's trying to become like me, a little Tsar, and he threw him in prison for 2 years on a trumped up charge of murder. And then he had to escape to a town in Austria, Hungary, called Sadigov. And there are many Hasidim that come from this Chernobyl, from the Yisrael Luzhin. Rabbi Yisrael Luzhin said, we're still not getting the Medrash right because of a big question most people have. When I tell you you are holy, and I say you can be holy like God because you have godliness inside of you, and then you look at yourself in the mirror and you start thinking, that's not me. I have a lot of things going on in my life. And there's a long list of things, and some of them will apply to some people and others. Some people say to themselves, you know, I'm a nebuch, I never really get things done. I never get organized. I never am getting married. I never can get my life together. I never can get I'll never deal well with my mother-in-law, my sisters, my siblings, my family or something like that. When I start talking, nobody likes to listen to me. It's a whole list of things and baggage that we say about ourselves, negative things that we carry along with us. And that, ties us down. And we think that that's who it is. Why? Because that voice is coming from inside of us. And that voice, that chatter, that mind is always running. And it's always telling you every time that you hear a certain line from somebody who's critical of you, and you go off ballistically thinking about that person, and it ruins your day and so forth, because you start extrapolating, oh, here we go again. This is me. I know and I always fail at this. I always this and other kinds of stuff. So we have these kind of things. And how can we say that we're really holy? And the Ruzhin Rebbe says, this is not just a prediction. You will be holy, kedoshim tiyu, but actually giving you an instruction of how do you become holy? How do you change your mentality of many, many years of depression and other kinds of stuff and start turning it into something that you start looking at the world optimistically? So he says, there's a key line in there. When it said, the Medrash says, Talmud Lomar, usually when we read that in Torah, it's giving you a quote. It's saying, you have a question. Kodoshim to you can be holy like me? The answer is, hey, there's a line in scripture that tells you you can't be because God is holy. Talmud Lomar, I am holy. He says, Talmud Lomar, in this sense, the Ruzhin Rebbe says, Talmud Lomar says the Talmud tells us, it says we are reading it wrong. It's not punctuated that way. It's Tilmad Lomar. It means that you should start saying to yourself. Lomar means to say. Tilmud is to teach yourself to say. Teach yourself to say the following: I am holy. Teach yourself to say, use it as a mantra. Why? Because God is God, and he can make holiness, and he can make holiness in a human being, and he can put himself in the whole human being even more than the angels. And therefore, you are truly holy. And you have to say this to yourself every time you start getting in a negative attitude and a negative experience or something like that. You have to start telling yourself, I am holy. I am truly who, if I'm really in touch and aligned with who I am, then I am holy. I really am a holy being. I am a piece of godliness. I am his agent in this world. And if God is able to do it, then I am able to do it. Because when we say negative things about ourselves, we really are insulting Hashem. Because change the language around. If you are really a piece of Hashem, then when you say, I am disorganized, I can never control my weight. I can never control my eating habits. I can never control my temper, my anger, you're telling that about God. And God, you're saying God is limited and God can't get over his issues and so forth. That's not nice. It's not really, it's not accurate. So if what you truly are is an unlimited being, which is that what you truly are, then the Rishon Rebbe says, stop saying that about God. Start saying about yourself, I am holy. And yes, there's going to be a voice in you that's going to keep saying those things that you've been saying all your life. That all those baggage and all those insecurities that you got when you were little and somebody criticized you, and you may not even know it, it may be subconscious that you have various kinds of reasons why you are not a happy, cheery, optimistic person because of your family and this and that, and this happened and that happened, and other kinds of events happen. Yeah, that's there. But you got to start putting it into quarantine. You have to start figuring out how to say that voice is there and those negative thoughts are going to come up and you're not going to be able to get rid of them just right away. But you know what? If you stop repeating them to yourself and you stop letting them take over yourself, they start to become less of a factor in your life. So I heard from Yossi Jacobson, he gave a nice mashal for this. He said, you know, you should consider those voices sort of like a backseat driver. When you have a backseat driver, they're always telling you things, right? They're saying, you know what? You never were able to drive. You drive too fast. You drive too crazy. Take a left over there. You can go through on the yellow light. You don't have to wait. That's a right turn on red. And they're giving you all these directions. And you know what? They can drive you crazy because it's like a yenta. It's like that voice inside of you that just keeps going and going and going and saying these things over and over again. So you can do one of three things when you have a backseat driver, which means in this case, it's yourself, your own voice saying this. You can either throw that backseat driver out of the car, which is really not that possible when it's you who's doing it. So that may not be an option. The second option is you can say, you know so much better, you take over the steering wheel. That's not a good idea. You might end up in the Pacific Ocean if you go that way. And then the third option is the saying, I heard you and I'm driving and I got the steering wheel and I'm in charge. So whenever we get into these moods and whenever we get these feelings of it's a failure and life is going downhill and I know where this is headed and it's just like what had happened 2 years ago and 3 years ago and it's the same event happening over again and you're just in panic mode and you're some sort of, you know, you're having a panic attack and all this stuff is going down and so forth like that, you have to Talmud Lomar. You have to tell yourself, I am a piece of godliness. It's giving you a direction. It's giving you an activity to how to control yourself and how to control your emotions. Or at least not control, but at least not let them get hold of the steering wheel. Saying, I heard you, that's right, but I got another mission to do today. I got some activities to do. I got some positive things that I can get done. And I can accomplish those things today. And I'm gonna go and do that stuff. And I'm gonna do that stuff, and I'm not gonna spend my time wallowing in all these issues and so forth. And that's what the Rishon Yeshua teaches us. Is it says, Talmud Lomar, tell yourself, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing, because God is holy, and he's powerful, and he's going to give me the energy, and he's going to help me figure this out. And because I'm part of him, and he wants me to succeed because his success is dependent on me. As it says at the end of the Medrash, it says, "Kedushi l'mala mimcham." My holiness is from you. I get my holiness above from you. It's elevated. It comes out through you. When you start acting that way, then you start bringing in godliness in this world. And now I can funnel in all those energies and blessings inside of you. So I was going to conclude with a little story. I told it yesterday. I think it's a practical way. You know, one of the things to do it is one of the practical ways that we bring about this attitude into this world is we start doing it with other people and with ourselves too. And we start looking at ourselves and other people in a holistic way. So there's a story that's told. It's about the Telner Rebbe who lived in Beit Vegan in Yerushalayim. And he was a big chassid. And he established the yeshiva, and he had a mashgiach who ran the yeshiva. And one day, he heard a knocking at night at his door, and it was one of the Bacharim from the yeshiva. And the guy was knocking at the door, and he says, I need a place to stay. And the Talmud Rebbe was well known as a person who was very hospitable, and he let all sorts of people into his house. And he says, yes, but you're in the yeshiva. Why can't you stay in the yeshiva? And he says, the mashgiach threw me out. He says, why did you throw you out? He says, I don't really want to say. He says, okay, we'll go and we'll visit and we'll see the mashgiach. So he gets his coat on. It's late at night, and they go to see the mashgiach. And it's late, he's not a young man, the Talmud Rebbe, he's in his 80s, so it took him quite a while to get over to his house, and it must have been around midnight. They knock on the door, the mashgiach comes down in his pajamas, he'd been sleeping already, and he sees, wow, the Talmud Rebbe, the great Talmud Rebbe, why do I have your visit here tonight? And he says, this bacher says that you threw him out of the yeshiva. And the mashgiach says, yeah, I threw him out. For good reason, if you saw what he was doing, you would do it also to protect the other Bachar. The Talmud Rebbe says, okay, I don't disagree with you. You can run during the yeshiva you would. I just have one question. Where do you want this guy to sleep? The buses in Bayit Vagan stop at 8 o'clock. He has no place to go. He doesn't live in Bayit Vagan. He has no place to sleep. What did you want to have done with him? He said, Mashgiach says, it's not my issue. He's no longer a Bachar in the yeshiva. And the Talmud Rebbe goes back to him and he says, yeah, but it looks like you had no problem going to sleep. You got into your pajamas, you went into bed, and he's wandering the streets. How can you let a Bachar wander the streets and you are sleeping well at there? He says, he's not in the yeshiva anymore. It's not my issue. He says, where's the guy supposed to sleep? He needs a place to sleep. If you throw him out of the yeshiva, that's your decision. But now you have to go walk around the streets with him or something. Or let him into your house or something of that sort. You can't let a Bachar just sit around on the streets. So the mashgiach heard the tochachot. He heard the rebuke, and he said, you're right. It's a Jew. I have to let him in. I have to do something with him. So they let him back into the yeshiva, and of course the kid turned out very well afterwards. And the mashgiach, to his credit, when the Talmud Rebbe was there sitting shiva for him, came and told this exact story. Now, what I find interesting in the story is I think it's an example of how you have to look at the whole person. You can't look at just the events and the acts that he does. You can't look at the symptoms, the external symptoms that's going on in the person. And the same thing with yourself. There are facts and there are things that happen to you in your life and so forth. And you say, because of this and this and this, this is who I am and that's what I am. And you're not looking at your whole person. You're not looking at your whole being. And you're not looking at the whole being of your friends and your family and the other people that you get into arguments with. Yes, they may have done some very things and they may have done some very hurtful things and you may be very hard to relate with them. And they may be, they may come back and, that stuff is going on anymore. You have to look at the whole person. You have to look at the whole person in yourself and you have to look at the whole person and everyone else. And when we start doing that and we start looking at the godliness in the person and we start looking for that godliness in the person and we don't let the other event things overrun and we see that everybody is a Kol Yisrael, all Jews are children of Hashem, then we start becoming unity and we begin bringing honesty in this world and we start changing this world. I think that's really the lesson of this, the virus, because the virus is, like you said, lets negativity in. You can't let that negativity in. You got to look at things positively. You got to look at it optimistically, and God is in charge. And it's all going to be very good. It's going to be good because we know it's going to be good. That's what we're told is going to happen. It's going to turn out good. It's just going to be an interesting transition period. But we have the powers because God is invested in us, and this is His project, and His holiness is dependent on us. And when we start behaving the way that starts reflecting who we truly are, then we really do change this world. All right, I'm going to give the camera or the recording over to my wife, or she's going to. This is that. Or, are you going to say something, or
yeah.
It's at the end? Okay. Good. You got ours.
Okay, good. Okay. So I'm just going to talk for a few minutes, and I'll plunge right into it. And this recording is for our friends in Israel because we weren't able to record last night, and I had a couple of requests, a few requests, some requests from Israel. So so that's why we're doing this. So anyway, I want to tell you a story that happened a long time ago when I was in a women's yeshiva. It was in 1989, And there was a teacher there. She wasn't one of the main instructors. She came once in a while. Her name is Rosa Weinreich. Rosa Weinreich since then has become a phenomenon. She writes books. She's famous. Not a Lubavitcher. I went on to become a Lubavitcher. She's a Litvish Jew. And somebody recently sent me a WhatsApp, and I saw, oh my goodness, it's from Rosa Weinreich. Somebody had taped something she said, and they put it on. So I said, oh, I'm going to listen to this. I really like Rosa. So Rosa told a story. She said when she was in the Catskills many years ago, she was there with her children, and I believe her grandchildren, and her parents. And she wanted to take her mother to see a gorgeous view in the Catskills. So she packed the kids, the grandkids, the mother, but the only problem was it was a walk uphill. And but after you walked for a while, you would come to an incredible sight. So they're walking and walking and walking, and her mother was the type of person who thought she could do anything, absolutely anything. And they get to a certain point in the walk, and her mother, Royce's mother, announces, "I cannot go any further. Don't worry about me. This is not for me. Don't worry about me. I'm going to sit on this tree stump here, and I'm going to be fine. Don't worry about me." And so Rosa didn't know what to do because her kids and grandchildren, they were continuing to run up the trail, and she didn't want to leave her mother on this tree stump. She felt torn, and she didn't know what to do. And all of a sudden, like seconds later, her kids start shouting, and they say, "We're here! It's gorgeous! We're here! It's so beautiful! We're at the top!" And so both she and her mother realized that the top really was very close by, and the grandmother got herself up, dusted herself off from the tree stump, and walked up just a tiny bit more of the trail, and there they were at the top, and it was magnificent. It's something called the Catskill Mountain House View. Hopefully, we'll all see it again. We'll all see it one day. And Royce says this. She thinks it's like a parable for our times. She said, and made this recording just this year. She said, 25 years ago, the Lubavitcher Rebbe told everybody, "We're here. Geula is unfolding. It's happening now." And so she said, apparently Lubavitcher Rebbe walked faster than the rest of us. He walks faster than the rest of us. She said, but in the interim, in these past 25 years, there have been many tzaddikim, many holy people who are saying the same thing. It's happening. This is now. It's happening now. So, and she makes a point, a very beautiful point. And she said, if you think that there's an enormous thing that you have to accomplish in order to reach some kind of goal, then you're not going to do it, because it's too overwhelming. But if you think there's only a tiny bit more that is left to do, then it's suddenly very easy to do. It's suddenly very easy to do these things. So anyway, we are. I think more and more people are recognizing that we're in a time that is a spiritually packed time. And it's a special time right now. Hashem has given us a very special gift this time. And it's true, there are frightening things that are happening, but it's also true, and not just me, not just religious Jews, not just non-Jews, everybody's recognizing it. And there's a certain softening of the world. There's a certain softening of the coarseness of the world. We've gotten rid of many distractions. It's a very interesting thing. I read once many years ago that one of the principal differences between when we will have Mashiach and we will see him and the time before is that the static will stop. We live in a world of static, and we're not even aware of it because it's so prevalent and so constant. And when Mashiach is here and we can see him and we're living in that time, then all of a sudden the static will stop and we'll notice a difference. So right now, to some extent, the static has already stopped. A lot of worthless things have gone out the window, and we're concentrating on essentials. So anyway, I've said before, and I'll say again, I honestly feel that Hashem is pouring down powers. God is pouring down powers from heaven to accomplish in areas that we haven't been able to accomplish before, in thorny personal problems, in things you carry around as baggage, and you just never have the time to work on them. And you try a little bit here and there, and then and life goes on. Now I'm working on thorny things in my life, and I see much more success than I've ever seen in my life. And and I think it's not just true for me, it's true for people are producing like mad. They're producing good things now. So, so anyway, I want to add that if you, in the course of refining yourself, like I burn dinner a lot, and so there's like lots of junk on the bottom of the pot. And when you have lots of junk on the bottom of the pot, the best way to remove it is to put more water in the pot and reboil it. And when you reboil it, in the beginning, you're just going to get a few bubbles. But then if you leave it on for a long time, it really starts generating some steam. And all of a sudden, some huge clods of crud are going to come from the bottom of the pot. And you'll say, oh my gosh, look at that. That's what happens in the process of personal refinement too. You work on a little thing here, a little thing there, and all of a sudden, oh, some big ugly clod comes to the surface, and you say, that's me? That's what's in me? Hashem is giving you a gift. He's showing you, don't be alarmed. Just fix it. Just do what you have to do. This has been there all along. Just do it. Just fix it. And so, so anyway, since we're talking about personal refinement and things like that, I think it behooves us to talk about what are our powers? Who are we? So I've said it before and I'll say it again. We are our moral choices. Like when you have a brilliant idea, let's say you're a writer and a brilliant turn of phrase comes into your mind. It's not you, it's God. It's a gift that God, all our thoughts come from God. It's a gift from God. But if you do something good with that thing, if you put in effort and you use it in a productive way, that's you. Every moral choice we make is us. If you're gorgeous, Hashem did it. If you're brilliant, Hashem did that. If you're powerful, Hashem did that. Yeah, you get credit for the effort you put in to build your muscles or whatever it is, or to develop your talents, to learn certain topics. But the ability is definitely Hashem, and even the individual ideas are Hashem. So, but who are we? We are our moral choices. And that's where we can either be mediocre, bad, or good, or magnificent, a shining star. So so anyway, the sweat when we put out sweat to help another person, that's us. When we worry about somebody else, and not worry unproductively, but we think productively about something that can be done to help them, that's us. And another thing that's us is when we go out of our comfort zone to tell another Jew, to tell another person, anybody, that we're entering the age of Mashiach, and not to be shocked that this is what's happening. Because we know that the Lubavitcher Rebbe said in 1991, he said in a Sikha around Pesach time, the 28th of Nisan, in 1991, after Pesach, he said, he gave a remarkable talk, and he said, I have done everything I can do to bring Mashiach. Now it's your job. And we know the Rebbe said that when he said something, it's not a figure of speech. He really means it. And when he said it's our job, it's not because he gave up. It's because it is truly our job. There's nothing more he can do. It is our job. There's the rest of it, Hashem assigned in our hands. And the Rebbe told us that one way that we can advance the redemption is by telling other Jews and telling other people. It's happening. You should be aware of your mitzvahs. You should know about what you're supposed to do. Jews and non-Jews, we both have mitzvahs, and you should know that this process is happening. And the Rebbe went so far as to say that if you don't believe it, why should your family suffer just because you don't believe it? You have to still tell them. And so anyway, that is an act of good when you spread truth and when you go out of your comfort zone. Many years ago, I think it was probably 1984, I was in Israel. And I was at the wall, like Jews often, most Jews go to the wall when they're in Israel. I was a secular Jew. And a man came over to me, a rabbi. His name was Meir Schuster. I don't think he's alive anymore. And he said, would you like a Shabbos experience? And because I was a liberal Jew, I said, not me, not me. No, that's totally not for me. It's never going to be for me. And so, but like a clever man, he had other tricks up his sleeve. And he said, okay, well, how about a tour of Jerusalem? So of course I'm going to take a tour of Jerusalem. And he set me up with an Aish Torah rabbi who gave tours. And by God's hand, by God's providence, I ran into that Aish Torah rabbi 6 or 7 times in the brief time that I was in Israel. And the last time I ran into him, he sat next to me on a bus for half an hour between Tel Aviv and Petach Tikva. He was on the same bus, and he finally talked me into taking one class at Aish Torah, and that was the beginning of the end. And so, I mean, it was a long process after that, but still, that was the opening of the whatever you want to call it, the opening of the passageway. And I am who I am in part because one Jew went out of his comfort zone and asked an uncomfortable question. So I owe a tremendous amount to that person. So when we spread knowledge of Mashiach and we quiet the voice inside of us that says, what are other people going to think? Shh, quiet. Then we're doing a great thing for that person. We're doing a true kindness, an absolute kindness. So we can do that. And the other thing is to more and more see how Hashem is everything. To remember that, and this is a classic opportunity, a classic time to do that. When we remember that there's no force in this world that supersedes Hashem, that Hashem controls everything really, except for our own responses, except for our moral choices. But he handles everything. So the coronavirus is not an independent thing, as we know. The coronavirus is a tool of Hashem. We don't understand exactly what Hashem is doing with it, but we see certain things that are coming out. And we have to know that as a Jew, what is our responsibility? Our responsibility is to take care of yourself and to take care of others, to do what the doctors say, not to, as somebody sent out a WhatsApp, don't be a chacham. Don't think you know more than the medical authorities. I often think I know more than the medical authorities, but no, don't be a chacham. Do what the medical authorities say, and do what the medical authorities say, and but at the same time, know that everything that you do is simply hishtadlus. It's simply your effort that you're giving to God because it's a mitzvah to do. It's a mitzvah to take care of yourself and take care of others. But really, whether God forbid a person gets this thing or not, and nobody should ever get it again, is totally in Hashem's hands. A person can protect themselves to the nth degree and still get it, and a person can protect themselves relatively lightly and still get it. The person who protects himself relatively lightly is not doing their job. They really should protect themselves well because it's a mitzvah, but they are not protecting themselves with the activities that they do. Hashem is protecting them. They're doing a mitzvah, the mitzvah of taking care of themselves. So this was really one of the most profound moments in my life in which I recognized that everything is Hashem and what I do is simply hishtadlus. Was one time in the I don't remember when it was. It was sometime in the 90s, probably late 90s, and my parents had a horrendous decade. Both of them were sick almost all the time, and I would constantly fly to their place in Delaware, fly into Wilmington, Delaware, and it was an amazing. And I would always fly into a crisis, and sometimes I would take one parent to the emergency room one day, and then the other parent to the emergency room the next day. And one time it was I saw things and heard things and experienced things that I never in my life thought I would have to go through. And one time when it was particularly arduous, it was snowing. In Delaware, snow is not so common. I went outside and I took some snowballs and I said, Ribono Shel Olam, I'm not going to worry about this anymore. I'm going to do what I have to do, but it's yours. See this? These are all my mother's problems. And I made another snowball. See this? This is all my father's problems. It's yours. I know it's yours. I'm going to go through the motions. I'm going to do what a conscientious daughter does, but I'm not going to worry about it because it's yours. You're taking care of them. And that's what we have to know in every instance. So anyway, having said all that, we have to remember that even though Hashem does everything, we are super important because certain things Hashem left up to us. The bringing of Mashiach, Hashem left up to us. The accumulation of good in this world that causes the transformation into the time of Mashiach. He left it up to us. And we know that Lubavitch Rebbe told us that Mashiach is already here. He hinted very strongly that he is Mashiach. He said that, and even though this is a person who's constantly self-effacing, he in 1991 he started hinting, and he also said in that year that burial has no effect will have no effect on Mashiach, and he told us that anyway, and his level of credibility, as I said before, is something that is abnormal. His level of credibility. We know that just two examples that I often cite too, but there are hundreds of examples that in 1989, whatever it was, when Gorbachev took office, Gorbachev had no idea that he said later he had no idea that he would ever release the Russian Jews. But in the day he took office, Lubavitcher Rebbe called his Hasidim and said, start building housing in Israel. The Russian Jews are coming out. And many years later, one of his Hasidim, Professor Herman Branover, had the opportunity to speak to Gorbachev when Gorbachev was no longer he was no longer a statesman. He was now just a speaker, and he was no longer a politician. And he told him, "Can I tell Mr. Gorbachev a story about himself?" And Gorbachev said, "Certainly." And he said, "This is what happened on the day you took office. Lubavitcher Rebbe called me and said, start building housing for the Russian Jews because they're coming out." And Gorbachev paused and he said, "I would like to meet such a man who knew more than me what I would do." I myself had no clue that I would do such a thing because he was a hardliner. So anyway, we also know the Rebbe told us on the Gulf War, he told us it would end on Purim. That it would end by Purim. It ended on Purim. He told us that no Jew would get hurt by the bombs. No Jew got hurt by the bombs. And anyway, so finally, I'm just going to say the last thing is that Mashiach is going to be a king. That's what Mashiach is. He's a king, and there's a king needs the people. It's compared to a heart and the limbs. When a heart pumps blood to all the limbs can't survive without the heart, but the heart can't survive without the limbs pumping the blood by their movement, pumping the blood back to the heart, getting the blood back to the heart, returning the blood to the heart. It's a closed system. We are completely mutually compatible. So we're right now, Hashem is relying on us, Mashiach is relying on us, and each in our own way, we were given the places to work on. Wherever you are in the world, that's your place to work on, and we need to turn over this world for good. So, any questions?
I just want to say it's awesome.
Okay, good.
Really encouraging right now, really, really inspiring. And, the ability to see that we actually make, our choices make a difference. It's like a part and parcel, like seeing our potential to make that difference and then making the choices to make that difference.
Yes, and you do that all the time.
Thank you. We have a bar mitzvah in the house, by the way.
Mazel tov, mazel tov, mazel tov. I think it's adorable and charming. I think these small weddings and these small bar mitzvahs and I think it's a charming thing. I really do. I heard about several of them. There's a sweetness to them.
It's interesting. Like it's a great equalizer. Because, it takes out the competition. It takes out that notion of Gashmias. It takes out so much and brings it right back to the power of what is actually going on.
What's actually going on. Beautiful. Yeah. I heard about a couple. This was right in the beginning when they were starting to crack down on simchas. And so this family, the bride came from Canada. So not even all the siblings went. Only a few of the siblings went, and the parents, and my neighbors across the street. And where did they have the wedding? They had the wedding on the back porch. The bride had like grandparents who were in their 90s, and so they made it on the grandparents' back porch, and the grandparents didn't come. They just watched from the
The
closed
window?
window. They watched from the closed window, and it was a beautiful wedding on a back porch. And then they moved to the parents lived on the same street, so they moved to the parents' backyard for the simcha. And there was like just a few people there, but my neighbor said it was absolutely charming. The whole thing was so charming and so potent. Exactly. You get to the heart of what's really, it's the essence of what's going on, not all the fanfare. So I agree with you.
Yeah, it takes away a lot of the distraction.
Yes, it's so much easier on the pocketbook. Yeah, I agree. I think it's marvelous. That's the way simchas used to be made. You remember, not that you remember, no, neither one of us remember, but there was no such thing as caterers. All the people in town
All the
got
aunties
together and
cooked.
baked. Yeah, what?
All the aunties cooked. That was
All the
it.
aunties cooked, exactly. And there was no, it was so beautiful. So anyway, we're getting back to some good things.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm gonna go and okay, and thank
Well,
you.
this is one of those good things. Like, look what this does. Like, I get to spend time with you and be in your classes again, which would be,
Yes.
it would be how long till I could actually do it
I
in
know.
person. But Baruch Hashem, I can be with you in this space, which is incredibly, incredibly special to me. I want to thank you for giving us
Thank
this
you so much.
opportunity.
Thank you so much. I love it. I love it. I love seeing you all. Okay, thank you so much.
Have a great night.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.